The Forbes family is a wealthy extended American family long prominent in Boston, Massachusetts. The family's fortune originates from trading between North America and China in the 19th century, plus other investments in the same period. The name descends from Scottish immigrants and can be traced back to Sir John de Forbes in Scotland in the 12th century. Notable family members are businessman John Murray Forbes, part of the first generation who accumulated wealth, and politician John Forbes Kerry. Family origins. The Forbes family descends from the Scottish clan Forbes, which was seated in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. The first member of the Forbes family to live in the United States, John Forbes, a clergyman, married Dorothy Murray on February 2, 1769 in Milton, Massachusetts, where one of his 3 sons was born. The family is considered part of the Boston Brahmin elite, although the Reverend John Forbes' first post on the North American continent was in British East Florida, where he became the first Anglican clergyman licensed to officiate during the English period of 1763 to 1783. The Forbes family has a link to the Dudley Winthrop family directly from Thomas Dudley, father of Anne Bradstreet, the first English-language female poet from America. Accumulation of wealth. Trade with China. The Boston trading firm Perkins and Amp Co. sent many young men of their extended family to participate in the business activities abroad. Ralph Forbes being married to Margaret Perkins, the children were encouraged in the business. Following the death overseas of his older brother, Thomas Dunno Forbes, the Perkinses encouraged John Murray Forbes to travel to China, too. There John was mentored by the Chinese merchant Ho Kui, who treated him like a son. Perkins and Amp Co., like many other Boston trading firms in the early 19th century, sent ships to China to get tea for sale in America. To pay for the tea, they exported to China large quantities of silver and also furs, manufactured goods, cloth, wood, opium and any other items that they thought the Chinese market would absorb. Active trading houses, particularly those from Boston, usually kept representatives resident in Hong Kong whose main role was to look for and secure quality tea for export at good prices. This was John Murray Forbes' main job during the 2 years he spent in China. John Murray Forbes' brother, Robert Bennett Forbes, was more intimately involved in the importing side of the business and, at least by their own writings, had a more direct role than did John in the opium trade. Until recently, the Museum of the American China Trade in Milton, Mass., on Boston's South Shore, was curated by Forbes' great-grandson, Dr. H.A. Crosby Forbes, an expert on Chinese porcelain. The museum, which was housed in Robert Bennett Forbes' 1833 Greek Revival-style house, was a monument to the China merchants and the great wealth in Boston that both drove and resulted from the China trade. The China Trade Museum was merged with the Peabody Essex Museum in 1984, leaving the house in the management of the Forbes House Charitable Trust, which operates it now as the Captain Forbes House Museum. Neither John or Robert spent more than a relatively short time in China. John was there for 2 years. Upon his return to Boston, John continued interest in the China trade for a few more years, serving as a business investment manager for voyages undertaken by Robert and others. Fairly soon, however, he recognized that the China trade was becoming increasingly difficult to pursue profitably and that railroads offered a new and much more lucrative opportunity. Railroad investment. John Murray Forbes made a considerable fortune from investments in railroads from the 1840s onwards. Some of the population growth of Chicago and Midwestern Plain states in the middle to late 19th century was due to John Murray Forbes' railroad projects in Michigan and Chicago. The Chicago, Burlington and Amp, Quincy Railroad, from Chicago west to the Mississippi, was built by John John Murray Forbes, who had a reputation for sound financial management amongst the railroad tycoons of the day. Other sources: John Murray Forbes and Ralph Waldo Emerson were friends. Forbes's son William Hathaway Forbes married Emerson's daughter Edith in 1865. William was an early investor in Alexander Graham Bell's telephone company, becoming company president. Family assets. Some Forbes family members remain generally influential in local and national politics. In the 1840s, John Murray Forbes bought Naoshan Island, which is one of the Elizabeth Islands northwest of Martha's Vineyard and southwest of Cape Cod, and within the town of Gosnold, Massachusetts. Forbes and his descendants have used the property as a summer retreat since then. The property is presently owned by Forbes Family Corporation, the Naoshan Trust, Inc. Notable family members. Noted as businessman Colonel James Grant Forbes, engaged in the West India trade in Port-au-Prince, served as an army officer during the War of 1812, went as envoy in 1821 to receive the relinquishment of the Floridas from the Spanish authority in Cuba, governor of East Florida. Grandson of John Forbes, John Murray Forbes, born in France. John Murray Forbes was the first of the family to enter the China trade and later invested in railroads and amassed a large fortune. Francis Blackwell Forbes, poppy botanist, wrote a book on Chinese plants. Opium trader in the China trade. James Grant Forbes II, American lawyer, banker and businessman, son of Francis Blackwell Forbes and wife Isabel Clark and brother of William Hathaway Forbes, was born in Shanghai, China, where the Forbes amassed a fortune from the opium trade and merchant banking after the Opium Wars. The grandfather of Bryce Lalonde and John Forbes Kerry. Another grandson of John Forbes, Robert Bennett Forbes, partner of Russell and Amp Company, and later associated with Yale University Development and Endowment. Noted as politicians and activists, many Forbes family members are influential in local and national politics in France, the U.S. and the Philippines. John Forbes Kerry, current United States Secretary of State, former United States Senator and Democratic Party candidate in the United States presidential election, 2004. Kerry has not worked in the private sector for Forbes family business interests and has spent his career in public service. William Cameron Forbes used his wealth to become Governor General of the Philippines and Ambassador to Japan. Bryce Lalonde, an environmental activist who was John Forbes Kerry's first cousin and friend. Lalonde is a French Green Party politician who was a candidate in the French presidential election, 1981, and the mayor of Saint-Brieuc-sur-Mer near the Forbes family estate in France from 1995 to 2008. He is a high-profile member of the UN and its Special Advisor on Sustainable Development. James Colt, a descendant of John Murray Forbes, part owner of Naoshan Island, the Forbes family estate off Falmouth, an attorney specializing in trusts and estates, served as a Massachusetts state representative, a trustee for 30 years, serving as managing trustee for 7. Ruth Forbes Young, founder of the International Peace Academy with purpose of studying UN peacekeeping and developing peacekeeping doctrine. She was married to the inventor and helicopter pioneer Arthur Middleton Young. Genealogy. Ancestors in the United States. The first members of the family to live in the United States was John Forbes, clergyman, son of Archibald Forbes, although the family retained its connections with Europe, and John Murray Forbes was born in France. John Murray Forbes, M. to Anne Howell. Bryce Lalonde, a French politician who ran for president of France as the Green Party candidate in 1981. Rosemary Forbes Kerry, M. to Richard Kerry. John Forbes Kerry, M. to Teresa Hines. John Murray Forbes of China and Boston, B. France. M. to Sarah Swain Hathaway, John Malcolm Forbes, Michael R. Payne B. June 25, 1928, NYCM. Ruth Hyde Payne, Oswald family benefactors in whose garage family friend Lee Harvey Oswald stored his rifle and in whose home Marina Oswald lived. William Cameron Forbes, investment banker and diplomat, served as Governor-General of the Philippines from 1908 to 1913. China Forbes, singer and songwriter, best known as lead singer of Pink Martini.